What's up, my fellow geeks? This is Hnefatafl, also known as Viking chess or King's Table. As the name would suggest, this game was played by Vikings and was very popular throughout all of Scandinavia from the 4th to 12th century. This game simulates a battle between two armies, the king and his army surrounded by a larger attacking army. Making a Hnefatafl board is quite easy. You need a square grid that is 11 by 11. Mark the center space for the king, that is his throne or castle, and mark each of the four corners for escape spots. The other markings on my board are optional and just show where all of the pawns are going to start the game. You're then going to need 24 attacking pawns and 12 defending pawns, then one large pawn for the king. My homemade Hnefatafl board is made from a wooden paint canvas. It's a 12-inch by 12-inch painting canvas. I bought a bag of 50 chess pawns from Amazon and I simply painted them and stained them. And then for the king, I bought a wooden game piece from Michaels. Introduction complete. Let's go over the gameplay and the rules. First, let's discuss the objective of the game. If you're the defending player, your objective is to move your king to any of the four corner spaces and effectively escaping battle. If you are the attacking player, your objective is to kill or capture the king. Since the objective is different for each player, you would take turns with your opponent playing as the king and only declare the winner if you win 2 consecutive games. Movement. The attacking player gets to move first, and every single piece, including the king, moves in the same way. You can move a piece as far as possible in a straight line. You are not allowed to move diagonally, and you are also not allowed to jump over pieces, whether they are your own or your opponent's. The king is the only piece that is allowed to reside on the center square or any of the four corners. Capturing your opponent's pieces is quite simple. If you move 2 of your pawns to be on opposite sides of your opponent's pawn, you capture their piece and take it off the board. You cannot self-capture. So if my opponent has 2 pawns positioned here, and I move my pawn in between them, my piece is not captured. However, if they move away and then back into that position, my piece is captured. Pawns are not considered captured when up against the edge of the board. So if my opponent moves his pawn up against mine, this pawn is not captured, I can move out. Capturing the king is more difficult, and that just makes sense. Instead of having a pawn on just 2 opposite sides, you need to have a pawn on all 4 sides to kill the king. You may also use the king's throne or center square to capture. So if the king is up against his center square and you have a pawn on the other 3 sides, he is captured and you win the game. The king is also captured if him and any pawns that he is grouped with become completely surrounded. This rule applies no matter how big the group is that the king is with. So if I manage to surround even his entire army with my pawns, he has no valid moves and the king is effectively captured. Unlike pawns, the king can be captured up against the edge of the board. So if the king is up against the edge and I get a pawn on the other 3 sides, the king is dead. As I mentioned before, the defending player wins the game if he can move his king into one of the 4 corner spaces and escape the battle. In my experience, it is much easier playing as the defending player, and that's why you would take turns with your opponent playing as the king and see who's the first player to win 2 consecutive games, once as the king and once as the attacker. If you like chess or games like it, I highly recommend you get your hands on a Hnefatafl board or make your own. The strategy is a lot different and quite unique because pieces can move as far as they like and the objective is different for each player. If you have questions about the rules or suggestions for other ancient board games you'd like me to cover, let me know in the comments section below. If you want to be cool like me, give your king an awesome Ninja Turtle paint job. Thanks for watching.